Have you ever opened your eyes in the dead of night, rolled over to look at the alarm clock, and noticed it is exactly 3 o'clock in the morning? It is not 2:15, it is not 4:30, it is right around 3, night after night, like clockwork. Millions of older adults across the country experience this exact same phenomenon every single night, turning their bedrooms into spaces of deep frustration and exhaustion. If this keeps happening to you, there is a very high chance you have already brought it up during a routine doctor's visit, only to be met with a shrug and a generic answer like, "Well, that is just a normal part of getting older." Or maybe you took matters into your own hands, opened up your computer, and searched for answers online, only to find the exact same 5 generic tips recycled across hundreds of different websites, telling you to cut back on caffeine or avoid looking at your phone before bed. But today we are going to go somewhere entirely different with this conversation, because after working closely with seniors for decades, I can tell you with absolute confidence that waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning is rarely a random coincidence. It is not some meaningless quirk of aging, and in the vast majority of cases, the true underlying catalyst has absolutely nothing to do with what most people assume it is. In fact, one of the 7 things I am going to break down for you today, the specific one I have saved for the very end of our discussion, involves a deeply fascinating process that takes place deep inside your physical body every single night that almost nobody in mainstream medicine talks about. It is something completely invisible, an internal shift that rarely, if ever, comes up during a standard 15-minute doctor's appointment. When you finally hear what it is, I truly believe it is going to completely change the way you perceive your sleep, your health, and your body's internal messaging system. I encourage you to stay with me through this entire explanation, because if you jump off early or skip around, you are going to miss the exact piece of the puzzle that might matter the most for your specific situation. Before we dive into the science, I want you to pause for a moment and do something right now. Think back to the last time you woke up at that exact hour and try to vividly recall what it actually felt like the moment your consciousness returned. Was it a sudden, jarring jolt that left your heart pounding? Did you feel a strange sense of creeping heat spreading across your chest or neck? Was there a sudden wave of inexplicable anxiety flooding your mind for absolutely no apparent reason? Or did you simply open your eyes and find yourself completely, utterly alert, as if someone had just walked into the room and flipped a light switch? Hold on to that specific memory and keep that feeling in mind, because by the time we reach the end of this discussion, you are going to understand exactly what your body was trying to communicate to you in that silent hour. My name is Dr. Franklin, and this space is built entirely upon one core belief, which is that seniors deserve real, clear, transparent, and completely honest information about exactly what is happening inside their bodies as they age. You do not need vague reassurances. You do not need overly complicated medical jargon that requires a degree to understand. You just need the plain truth explained in a practical way that actually helps you live a better, healthier life. Today, we are going to go incredibly deep on one of the single most frequent complaints I hear from adults over the age of 60, which is the frustrating reality of waking up at the exact same time every night, typically somewhere in that fragile window between 2 and 4 in the morning. Here is exactly what we are going to cover today. We are going to unpack 7 highly specific, scientifically backed reasons why your body keeps pulling you out of deep sleep at that precise hour. For every single one of these reasons, I am going to explain exactly what is happening on a physical level, why this particular issue hits so much harder after you pass the age of 60, what it actually feels like from the inside out, and most importantly, the practical, actionable steps you can start taking today to fix it. Before we reveal the first reason, I would honestly love to hear from you directly. Where are you watching from today? Take a quick second to drop your city, state, or country down in the comments section below. I personally read through these comments, and it genuinely helps me see exactly who is participating in this growing community of health-conscious individuals. Let us begin with our seventh reason, which centers around the fascinating concept that your body's internal organ clock is sending you an urgent distress signal. This is a concept that very few practitioners in conventional Western medicine spend time discussing, and yet the underlying physiological science behind it is surprisingly robust. Your body does not operate on just one single solitary internal clock. Instead, it relies on a highly complex network of multiple internal clocks running simultaneously. Every single major organ system inside your body possesses its own distinct biological rhythm, meaning it has its own peak hours of intense metabolic activity and its own designated periods of deep rest. Your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, and your complex digestive tract all follow a highly regimented, predictable daily schedule. According to both centuries of traditional medical observation and cutting-edge modern chronobiology research, your liver becomes most biochemically active between roughly 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. This specific window is when your liver works its absolute hardest to perform its critical overnight duties, which include filtering toxins out of your bloodstream, processing complex metabolic byproducts, and breaking down every single substance you consumed throughout the course of the day. Now here is where this biological reality becomes absolutely critical for seniors to understand. As we move past the age of 60, the natural structural efficiency of the liver begins to decline, meaning it processes waste products, fats, and chemical compounds at a noticeably slower pace than it did in our younger years. If your liver is forced to work overtime during the night because it is struggling to deal with a heavy evening meal, a glass of alcohol consumed close to bedtime, a complex cocktail of prescription medications, or a general buildup of metabolic waste, it can create a subtle but incredibly real physiological stress response deep within your body. This overnight stress response triggers a very light, localized hormonal shift, resulting in a minor spike in stress chemicals that is often just powerful enough to gently pull you out of an otherwise peaceful sleep at exactly that 2 to 3 a.m. window. To visualize this clearly, imagine your physical body as a quiet, sleeping city, and your liver is the night shift sanitation crew tasked with cleaning the streets. During the day, all the heavy garbage trucks are parked quietly in the garage, completely out of sight and out of mind. But as soon as 1 o'clock in the morning rolls around, those heavy engines roar to life, and the trucks start rolling through the narrow streets. The noise, the vibration, the flashing lights, and the overall mechanical activity do not necessarily have to be thunderously loud to disturb the entire neighborhood. They simply have to be active and present to disrupt the peace. If your city is already running a bit low on reserve energy, that sanitation shift is going to wake you up. So what can you actually do to address this specific issue? Whenever possible, try to finish your final evening meal at least 3 full hours before your head hits the pillow. Do your best to keep that dinner significantly lighter, particularly when it comes to heavy fats and dense proteins, since both of these macronutrients require an immense amount of prolonged liver processing and bile production to break down. Furthermore, try to completely avoid consuming alcohol in the immediate hours leading up to sleep. Even a very small, seemingly innocent amount of alcohol adds an enormous extra workload to your liver's overnight schedule, forcing it to prioritize clearing toxins instead of letting your body rest. Finally, if you happen to be taking multiple daily medications, it is highly worth sitting down with your pharmacist or doctor to ask whether any of those specific drugs are heavily processed by the liver, because altering the timing of those doses can matter significantly more than most people realize. Moving on to our sixth reason, we find ourselves looking at a situation where a critical mineral that your brain absolutely requires to maintain deep sleep is being systematically depleted. This is a specific cause that I find myself discussing constantly with patients because it is so profoundly overlooked by standard checkups. Yet it directly impacts an extraordinarily large percentage of older adults across the country. I am talking about the essential mineral, magnesium. Magnesium is arguably one of the most vital minerals in the entire human body, participating as a necessary cofactor in well over 300 distinct biochemical processes, and it plays an incredibly specific, irreplaceable role in the architecture of human sleep. On a chemical level, magnesium helps to smoothly regulate your central nervous system, directly supports your body's natural production of melatonin, and actively binds to and stimulates the GABA receptors in your brain, which are the exact pathways responsible for calming down nerve activity and promoting deep, restorative, uninterrupted rest. Here is the major problem that many seniors face without even realizing it. Clinical studies consistently demonstrate that systemic magnesium levels drop quite drastically as we get older. The aging gut naturally absorbs far less magnesium from the food we eat. The aging kidneys tend to excrete more of it out of the body, and a wide variety of incredibly common medications, including specific blood pressure diuretics, over-the-counter antacids, and prescription proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, can actively deplete your body's precious magnesium stores day after day. When your internal magnesium levels fall too low, your entire central nervous system enters a state of hyperreactivity. In this heightened state, tiny environmental or internal stimuli that should normally be ignored by a sleeping brain, such as a minor shift in room temperature, a slightly vivid dream, or a subtle noise outside your window, can suddenly jolt you wide awake. Once you are pulled out of sleep, your brain struggles immensely to power back down and return to a restful state, simply because it is completely missing the foundational chemical mineral that tells the nervous system to calm down and relax. I remember working with a 71-year-old woman who was incredibly sharp, active, and health conscious, yet she had been consistently waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning for the better part of 2 years. She had entirely convinced herself that the issue was driven by psychological anxiety, and she had tried every relaxation technique, herbal tea, and sleep app available on the market with zero success. It was not until we finally decided to look closely at her nutritional profile and run a specific blood test that we realized her magnesium levels were sitting on the absolute lowest end of the conventional normal range. After she had a thorough conversation with her primary physician and began taking a highly bioavailable magnesium glycinate supplement every evening, she casually reported that she was completely sleeping through the night within just 3 short weeks. Now, I want to be profoundly clear and responsible here. You should never blindly start supplementing with magnesium without first speaking directly to your own doctor, especially if you have any history of kidney concerns or underlying renal issues. However, when you do have that conversation, make sure to ask specifically about forms like magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate, as these particular molecular forms tend to be incredibly gentle on the digestive system and are absorbed far better by the brain and tissues than cheaper alternatives like magnesium oxide. In terms of increasing your daily intake through whole food sources, you can look toward incorporating more dark leafy green vegetables, pumpkin seeds, almonds, and black beans into your meals. But as critical as magnesium is, it is truly only one piece of a much larger physiological picture, because the next reason on our list involves a fascinating, automatic biological adjustment that your body undergoes every single night while you are completely unconscious. It is something that the vast majority of people have never heard of, and it represents what I consider to be one of the most deeply underappreciated causes of 3 a.m. waking in adults over 60. If you are still here with me right now, listening closely and finding this information helpful, take a quick second to type the number 6 down in the comments below. It lets me know that you are actively watching, engaging with the material, and getting genuine value out of this deep dive. Our 5th reason takes us directly into the science of thermoregulation, where your core body temperature is dropping far too rapidly, causing your brain to enter a state of sudden panic. The relationship between human sleep architecture and internal body temperature is infinitely more connected than almost anyone realizes. In order for your brain to successfully initiate the process of falling asleep in the evening, your core body temperature absolutely must experience a noticeable drop. That initial downward shift in temperature is actually the precise physical trigger that signals your brain to transition from wakefulness into sleep mode. Throughout the night, your internal temperature continues to follow a highly precise, tightly regulated circadian pattern, experiencing a slow, steady decline into the coldest hours of the early morning, followed by a gradual, step-by-step rise that begins to gently prepare your consciousness for waking up. In a healthy younger adult, this overnight temperature curve is remarkably smooth, gentle, and entirely predictable. However, once we cross that 60-year milestone, the delicate neurological systems responsible for managing our internal thermostat become significantly less precise. When this happens, two distinct things can go wrong at night. First, that initial core temperature drop can occur far too rapidly and aggressively in the very early part of the night. While you might think a rapid drop would help you sleep better, it actually severely disrupts your overall sleep architecture, making the lighter stages of sleep in the second half of the night incredibly fragile and easy to break. Second, that early morning temperature rise, the one that is biologically designed to wake you up naturally around 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, can prematurely shift earlier in the night. So instead of that gradual warming process beginning safely at 5 in the morning, the internal thermostat starts cranking up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The very moment your core body temperature begins to climb, your brain instantly interprets that physical warmth as an explicit behavioral signal that says, "Hey, it is time to wake up and start the day." This entire problematic cycle can be made dramatically worse if your bedroom environment is kept too warm. It is an incredibly common habit for many seniors to keep their bedrooms wrapped in a layer of substantial warmth, often because of a completely understandable concern about feeling uncomfortably cold or drafty in the middle of the night. But a bedroom that is kept at a high temperature actively fights against your body's natural, necessary overnight cooling process, effectively compressing your sleep cycles and pushing you into an incredibly light, unstable stage of sleep, right when you should be experiencing your deepest, most physically restorative rest. Think of your overnight sleep cycle as a delicate, slow-cooking pot sitting on a stove. Keeping the heat at the exact right, low temperature produces a perfect, beautifully balanced result. But if the external heat is set just a little bit too high, the entire cooking cycle gets disrupted, things finish far too early, and the contents quickly spill over the edges. Extensive clinical sleep research consistently suggests that an ambient bedroom temperature kept somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which translates to roughly 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, is the absolute ideal sweet spot for promoting deep, uninterrupted sleep in older adults. If that temperature range sounds incredibly cold to you right now, I challenge you to test it out for just one single week. Keep the room cool, but protect yourself by using a high-quality warm blanket and wearing light, breathable pajamas rather than trying to heat the entire volume of air in the bedroom. Many seniors are genuinely stunned by the massive difference this one environmental tweak makes in their sleep continuity. If what I am sharing with you today is making complete sense, and if you are starting to see your nightly sleep through a completely new lens, please take a brief second to press the like button right now. It takes less than a second of your time, but it vastly helps the platform distribute this video to other seniors who are currently lying awake in the dark tonight, with absolutely no idea why their bodies are waking them up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to do that as well, because I put these deep dive videos out because I genuinely believe providing access to this honest information can completely transform lives. Let us keep moving forward because we are now entering the specific territory of reasons that mainstream doctors almost never mention during a routine physical. Our fourth reason uncovers a hidden dialogue where your gut is actively talking to your brain. And the most intense part of that conversation is happening at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning. This particular connection surprises almost everyone I speak with, but the underlying scientific literature surrounding it is growing at an exponential rate. You have almost certainly heard of the gut-brain connection by now, as it has become a popular topic in health news. Researchers now fully comprehend that your gastrointestinal tract and your central nervous system are locked in a non-stop, highly active two-way conversation through a complex communication highway known explicitly as the gut-brain axis. This bidirectional highway relies on a massive network involving your vagus nerve, your systemic immune system, and hundreds of millions of specialized nerve cells woven directly into the lining of your entire digestive tract. What the vast majority of people do not realize is that this intense communication does not simply pause or shut down the moment you drift off to sleep. In fact, your gastrointestinal activity possesses its very own distinct circadian rhythm, and specific aspects of gut metabolism actually peak during the nighttime hours. When your gut microbiome, which is the massive, delicate community of trillions of bacteria living and working inside your digestive tract, falls out of structural balance, it can begin to generate low-grade inflammatory signaling molecules. These microscopic distress signals travel directly up the gut-brain highway, knocking right on the door of your sleeping.